morning to our viewers. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to Between Generations, A Life in Two Voices.
Good
We are
morning.
here today to interview a very lovely lady. But before we get to her, good morning, Mom. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. Thank you. And yourself?
Well, getting over the weekend almost, I guess. With the time change, it's a little bit funky, but I'm glad we got an extra hour of sleep. But I wasn't inspired to do anything Halloween, but my siblings, my friends, everybody else was posting like Halloween stuff on Facebook and social media sites. So I'm like, yay, them. But I was not inspired this year. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were all jazzed up with the Blue Jays and the World Series. And
Oh
it,
my gosh, that was that?
yeah.
I am so out of touch with what is happening. I did not even know that. Okay, I'll have to go back and recap.
Yeah.
Okay,
So there's,
well, let us get going. So we have Melissa Baldovinos this morning. She is my very good friend and a wonderful human in the community. So she serves us in the career capacity of childcare worker. Her title is regional coordinator. So this woman has worked her way up to an amazing career in childcare, and I just love what she puts out in the community. I love how she cares for children and she supports parents. And so you're really going to get to hear a little bit of the ins and outs about childcare, the management style, how to support families. We might even touch on some different activities that might be great for different age groups. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to my mama to get us in flow today.
Melissa, thank you so much for being here. I understand you're a wealth of information, and I am excited to hear what you have to offer us today. So, what I want to start with first is what is your approach to creating a safe and nurturing environment for children of different ages?
Okay, well, good morning. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to just kind of share whatever information I can with you all. Um, could you repeat that question for me?
Sure, absolutely. What is your approach to creating a safe and nurturing environment for children of different ages?
So that's a very big one for me. If it's okay, I think I'll kind of go back to just my own childhood because I feel like that connects a lot to how I am in my current field right now. Um, and I think about this story a lot in terms of the programs and the environments that we set up for children in our agency. So I was born in Africa. My dad was in the Peace Corps. My mom is from Haiti. So they met when he was in the Peace Corps over there. I was born in Africa, lived there for about 4 years. So I did not speak and learn English until we moved over here to the United States. And one of my earliest memories when we did move to the United States was my parents had put me in a little preschool while my dad was at work, and my mom, again, didn't know the language, so she was at home. And I just remember very clearly this preschool, walking around, being very shy and quiet because I didn't know anybody, and just kind of observing. I noticed the children kind of playing, but nobody was really coming over to me. I don't remember teachers talking to me or doing anything of that nature. The biggest thing that happened was there were some cubbies in this classroom. And I remember just kind of walking by the cubbies and looking inside them. And in Africa, we didn't have cubbies. So I'm like, oh, what are these? And I just noticed things inside these cubbies and stuffed animals and clothing. And in one cubby, I saw a candy cane. And I was like, how nice. They have candy canes in here for us. So I remember getting this candy cane and starting to eat it. And I just remember seeing a group of kids like looking at me and saying something. I don't know what they were saying, but I remember a lady coming over to me. In my mind, she was like this big principal. And I just remember her getting me, bringing me into an office and sitting me down in this big chair. And she's at her table across from me, kind of berating me and yelling at me for this candy cane. I remember not long afterwards, my mom came, um, and the teacher explained to her that these cubbies are for each child, and I wasn't supposed to take this candy cane. And I just remember feeling so humiliated and ashamed and just sad, not understanding, well, why didn't they try to explain that to me? Why did they just get mad at me? And that always stood out to me as, no child should ever feel like that. So fast forward to 30 plus years later when I'm, working with children myself, I always think about it, and I just have a very soft spot in my heart for especially the children who come to us from other countries who don't speak the language and they're crying all day and they're scared. I think of myself and how nice it would have been to have a teacher who was compassionate and made me feel safe and not ashamed or embarrassed for being curious. Children are curious, and that's okay. And I want to celebrate that and encourage that. So to me, I want to make sure that children feel you can explore whatever you want. I'm never going to make you feel ashamed or embarrassed for wanting to learn more and just explore unless you're going to, hurt yourself. I want to make sure that we create environments that are safe and children know they're free to do whatever they want within reason. But I'm also very clear with my staff about we're never going to make a child feel bad for doing the wrong thing. Because to a child, they're still learning and they're not going to fully understand, well, what's a cubby? Why can't I take this out? To some children, it's open to all. And that's what I had thought when I was 3, 4 years old. So, yes, for me, I just want to make sure that we're creating spaces where children feel safe. And that definitely also relates to the teachers that you bring in those programs, making sure that you hire staff that also kind of have that same mentality as well.
Very cool. Natalie, do you have any that you want to say?
I just think it's amazing that you bring it back to a life story and lived experience. I really love that because I know when I was working in childcare, it was the same thing. We always would have staff meetings and conversations around, what is the meaning behind all of this? Why do we do this work? Why is it so important to us? So that's amazing. And you know what? I learned something new. I didn't know you were born in Africa. As long as I've known you, I did not know that.
Yeah.
News to me, yay. But yeah, I just wanted to say that piece really quick. That's pretty cool.
And Melissa, I just want to say real quick that I apologize. I should have asked you to introduce yourself and where you come from. So I apologize for that.
That's all good.
But it is an interesting background. I did visit Haiti about 50 years ago. So it was at my age, I think I was about 12 then. And that was quite an experience.
Right.
But beautiful people, very
Yes.
gracious.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's a very interesting culture. My mom has not been back probably for about 20 years or so, but we still have family over there, and she's always talking to relatives in Haiti, and it's just not the best, political situation right now and just
yeah,
very unsafe. So if circumstances were different, then we would love to go back and visit and see where she came from, but unfortunately, that's just not the case right now.
yeah,
So all we can do is support from afar and do what we can to help right now.
very good. How did the staff handle challenging behaviors or conflicts between children?
Our staff is amazing, and they do that every day, all day. And it really just depends on the age group that you're working with. So I supervise programs from 0 all the way through 5th grade. So I see staff supporting children through all of the ages. And it really depends on the teacher and the director, and also the situation. So I'll just kind of stick with preschool since that's kind of my jam and my area of expertise.
Mhm.
So in preschool, you see a lot. Well, this is mine. She had this I had this first, and lots of conflicts like that. Um, a lot of times we'll kind of step back and see how the children respond first. If they're 2, they're really not going to have the language yet or the skills to know how to manage those types of situations. So the teachers really are there with them, kind of holding their hand and giving them the language. I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, who had this toy first? If it was so and so, then maybe we wait or we ask if we can use it when they're done. So if it is something a little bit more serious, if they're getting more physical, of course, we'll step in right away and try to resolve it in that sense. So for preschool, it's a lot of providing them with the language and the tools and modeling for them. So we'll sit down with them and kind of role play. We might tell them, okay, repeat after me, go over to your friend and say, I don't like that, or, can I use this? And we do the same thing over and over with the children until it's kind of ingrained in their memories so that they eventually know what to do on their own. And that's typically our approach in the preschool age. Once you get to the after school programs, it can be a slightly different approach. For some of my fifth graders, they can pretty much handle it on their own for the most part. The fourth, fifth graders, they're older, more experienced, especially with this generation now. I'm just amazed at just how advanced children are now. I'm like, wow, I was not like that in fifth grade. So I feel like parenting also has evolved a lot in terms of just how mature children are now. So I feel like our fifth graders really need to support them too much. If they're more on the shy side or they have, developmental delays or anything like that, they know to kind of come to me or another teacher for support. But for the children who, no, I got this, I don't like what you did. And I'm pretty impressed that we don't need to do that much. That's not always the case. I'm always impressed with the teachers and how they get down on the children's levels, try to explain things to them logically and rationally, and really involve them in those conversations. I think that's really important too, not just telling them this is what you need to do. Sometimes it's just stepping back and saying, what do you think we should do or you should do? And just really having a conversation. A lot of our after school programs do social emotional activities with the children on a regular basis. And that's a great tool for really just helping the children learn conflict resolution and how to be empathetic and compassionate and aware of not only your own emotions, but the emotions of others, which is really, really important for this age group to start learning now. So that as they get older and once they're out of our care, they're able to go off to middle school and high school and college and really have those serious conversations about their own emotions or acknowledge the emotions of others.
So I have a follow-up. Do you
Mhm.
do you see a lot of aggression or something that's a red flag for a child? And how would you deal with that?
We do. It's really interesting, actually. We would say probably the last 5 or 6 years, we've noticed a lot more challenging behaviors. And that's a conversation that we're having on a regular basis now. And for the last, I'd say, probably 3 years, really trying to figure out what is going on. I've been in the field for probably close to 20 years now. And thinking back to when I first started working as a preschool teacher, I would say we had maybe one child every year, every 2 years that had some pretty challenging behavior. Now it's 5, 6 kids every year, and that's a huge increase. A lot of it does have to do with COVID. We definitely noticed that children just being at home for as long as they were, they didn't have the opportunity to really learn and develop those social skills. And we're still trying to figure out, well, what is going on that there's so many challenging behaviors? Our staff is struggling. They are stressed out, begging for help and support. And our agency has done so much to just kind of get out there in the community to see what kind of resources and workshops that we can bring in for the staff, for the children, for the families who are all struggling, to
Yeah.
really just get to the bottom of what this challenging behavior mean. Why are these children acting out so aggressively? Yes, sometimes it's development, but we're not mind readers and we cannot always figure out the root cause of it. So, yes, there's definitely been a shift in just development in general with children that we've noticed. Luckily, there are a lot of resources out there. In Palo Alto, we partner with Parents Place, which offers wonderful workshops for children and families. We can bring some of their experts out into our programs to do observations. Since our staff is not qualified to diagnose children, we can bring in the experts to really support us if it gets to that point. We've exhausted all of our tips and tricks for, a month, 2 months. Nothing is working. Okay, now let's reach out to Parents Place, have one of their experts come out, spend some time in the classroom with us, talking to the staff, talking with the family to really just get their perspective on what's going on. And then they can kind of come at us with, okay, this is what I've noticed. And these are some strategies that you probably haven't thought of that you can try using. So Parents Place is a great resource. Obviously, we refer families, talk to your child's pediatrician to see if they might be able to offer you some extra support. And then Children's Health Council as well. I think that's affiliated with Stanford. They have some good resources also. But yeah, it's been really interesting the last 5, 6 years, just the huge dramatic shift in children's behavior. Because before it was just a handful every now and then, and it's all of our programs as well. Before it might have been one program out of our 18 programs that had some challenging behavior. Now all 18 programs have children with IEPs and severe issues that need, they need an aide 24/7 in the classroom. That didn't happen before. So it is very interesting seeing just the need that these children need right now.
It's got to be challenging. It really,
Yeah.
because the family dynamic,
Mhm.
think,
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
not
it's
sure
hard
how.
because the families do come to us, for the most part with their challenges at home, and we'll do our best to support them. It gets a little bit tricky when a family might be more in denial, and we're trying to come to them and say, "Hey, these are some things that we've noticed." And they're like, "Oh, no, we don't see that at home." Maybe you're not seeing that at home, but we're seeing this at school, and, we wanna address it now before it gets worse. And so, luckily, I would say most of our parents are pretty aware. It's kind of rare that we get a family that's in full-on denial. It happens, but those cases can be a little bit more sensitive to deal with, and that's where, for the most part, the directors kind of manage that. But if it gets to the point where this family is just not listening, what do I do? That's where I'll step in and, try to reach out and set up some kind of meeting with the family to really have more of a serious conversation.
Mhm.
Luckily, that doesn't happen too much. And again, our parents are pretty well educated in this, community. Um, and so they're willing to work with us and put in whatever they need to do to support their children. But, it is challenging, especially if you have a family that has two, three children and all of them are having issues. And they might be very different issues, but okay, well, let's come up with a plan to support all of your children. And how are we going to get there?
Wow. One more follow up. So, do you have, um, obviously, it's a diverse population of kids, and they
Mhm.
come from different areas? Is is that what you're
Yes.
seeing?
Yeah. So we get a lot of most of our families do come from Palo Alto or the neighboring areas. Few work in Palo Alto, so they might live, a few towns away. At the preschool that I work at, one of the things that attracted me to it when I started subbing there was just how diverse it was in terms of the children and the cultures. And we had a lot of families from Europe and Japan and other parts of the world who came to do sabbatical at Stanford University. So we would get them for 1 to 2 years. So it was very diverse, and that's continued in the last 17 years. So you definitely see a lot of diversity in our programs and within the community as well.
Yeah.
I'm
Nellie, do you
curious
have?
too. I have a follow-up to that. So actually it prompted me to
Mhm.
ask, how does your program support different cultures and ethnicities and also the different languages that come through? What are some pragmatic things that your staff or your team do to prepare to receive these children and these families and help them to feel welcome, in an area that they might not know how to outreach or who to ask for support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite questions because I love that we are very diverse and embracing and welcoming of all cultures. If you look at the staff as well, you'll see that it's very diverse. Since I've been there, we've really expanded and just very mindful about, who we place into our programs. Obviously, we can't discriminate, but if we're interviewing someone and we see that they're from another country, I love that. I'm like, yes, we can hire this person who can bring in their language and their culture. So really being
Mhm.
mindful about the staff that we hire as well, because that is very important. When we do get children from other countries who do speak other languages, one of the things that we've always done is before that child starts having a conversation with the parent about, can you provide us with a list of just commonly used words at home?
Mhm.
Hello, goodbye, eat, bathroom, things like that. With the American or with the English translation, so that we can say both
Mhm.
to the child, so that they can kind of understand what we are saying. It's also very helpful to have staff from other countries who might be able to relate a little
That's
bit more
true.
with certain families. In my entire time with the agency, we'd never had another Haitian family until several years ago. We finally did. I was amazed. I never thought that would happen. Um, and actually, an interesting story for you is one night I got an email from the father. urgent. Melissa, please call me right away. I need to talk to you about something so serious that just happened. What happened? So I call him and he said, oh, my wife came to pick up my child during nap time. The teacher opened the door and looked at my wife and threw my daughter's bag to her. And she was so offended. Um, Most
Wow.
people didn't think anything about it, but as soon as he
Mhm.
said that to me, I knew because that was something in the Haitian culture, you do not throw things to people. You
Mm.
don't keys, you walk over and you hand it to them. And so I said, I'm sorry that happened. I'll bring it up with the staff. And so I let the staff know. I said, I'm not upset. Actually, I think this is a really good learning opportunity for you. I don't blame you. You guys would not have known that that's a no-no in this culture because Americans, they toss things all the time. You're going to throw things across the room, and that's just part of normal culture. That's not
Right.
what you do in the Haitian culture. So it was a learning opportunity. When I brought it up, the teacher said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to offend. I said, you don't need to apologize. How would you have known? But now we know next time if we get another Haitian family, just don't throw things.
Oh
um,
my goodness.
yeah, I'm like, if I wasn't here, nobody would have known. It's not that often that we have a
Yeah.
Haitian person working, in the program. So I always think about that example. If we didn't have a Haitian person in the program, who would have known? We would have just been like so
Right.
upset about the situation. And, I might have gotten upset with the teacher, like, well, why did you throw that? But, it's a cultural thing. Just like there are
Mhm.
cultural things in, Asian cultures, Indian, there's different things all over. But unless you have somebody who has that experience, you're not always going to know. So yes, we do try to be very sensitive and just educate ourselves. Especially if we do get a family from another culture, we might ask them, are there any traditions that you would like to share with us? I know Diwali was happening recently, and a
Yes.
lot of our programs did some beautiful celebrations and had parents come in with food and decorations and really talk them about, what Diwali is. So we
Yeah.
always welcome and encourage families to come and share their home life with us as well.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. That's some really great context. It's so funny you say that because I resonate with that too. I had a similar situation where a
Right.
staff was encouraging a child to say goodbye to their
Right.
family, and they were extremely triggered by that and very upset. And this was an infant,
Mhm.
and the staff was Latin, and that's part of our culture is
Right.
to acknowledge the parents, say bye to the parents, kind of give off that warmth from the child to the parent and back and forth. So I almost lost that family because of that one little moment. It was literally a minute. So I'm thankful that your organization really just takes the time, to understand that part because we're all different, and we all bring something different here. So especially the language barrier is a big
Huh.
one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, and that's a tall order for staff to have to embody this language for this child, but they do it. They do it. I mean, I love that working as a staff, working as a director during my time in that space. The staff really just embodied that for them, and that made the child feel so much more, comforted. So that's amazing, and I can certainly speak to the teams behind you that work with you. So they're amazing, amazing people. Uh, do you have anything else, Ma, that you wanna
Well, no, I
ask?
just actually want to comment because back in the day, when you thought about childcare, right? Um, you brought your child to, yeah, I never had, fortunately, my kids, but you think about a structure, right? And you're bringing them in, and what do they do all day? Do they play? Do they, you know, I guess I never really thought about such a structured environment for children to really learn and grow. I always thought it was, childcare is okay. They go to somebody's house and they play and that's it. But
Right.
this is very structured. And so it's really cool because you're actually preparing them to go out as young children and adults because they're there so much time with you. So
Yeah.
it's really enlightening for me, actually, you know. But
That's a
then
good
I've
point.
also, yeah, you just didn't really, I didn't have to. There wasn't a necessity for us for childcare. because of our schedules. But I never really thought about how much is put into the structure of it all emotionally for the children. And actually, Natalie, you really provided a lot of information throughout the years about what you did at the agencies that you work for. So it's really, really enlightening. Very cool.
Yeah.
I do feel like the field of childcare has just evolved a lot. I mean, even thinking back to when I was a child in preschool, after I left that preschool where I was yelled at, I was in another childcare. And I remember having so much fun there. The teachers just played with us and they did silly games. And it was just a much more positive experience for me. But I also don't remember it being super structured. So I feel like that's kind of changed over the years. And now it's, there's some structure to it. There's a lot of open-ended play, kind of a mixture, depends on if you're Reggio or Montessori or Waldorf, whatever type of program it is. There's different, avenues that you can go in terms of how you set it up. But yeah, compared to 20, 30 years ago, I feel like it's a very different field now.
Oh, completely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, you just touched on something. What is the philosophy of your organization? That's another good thing
Oh,
for our viewers to know.
Oh, yes. So we are play-based. I wouldn't say that we're strictly Reggio or Montessori. I would say we're play-based. And then a lot of our programs kind of pick from all of those different areas. The preschool specifically that, I oversee, very open-ended, emergent curriculum. So really paying attention to what the children are showing interest in. We don't do those, cookie cutter themes and it's, this is the theme for the week or the month and this is what you have to do. We're
Yeah.
flexible. So one week
Nice.
the children might be interested in dinosaurs, and then that goes on for 2, 3 months. It might last for a week. Once we see that they're dying, their interest is dying and they're kind of moving on to something else, then okay, let's see what else they're talking about now. So we're very flexible in terms of what we bring into the curriculum, but really paying attention to the needs and interests of the children.
Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So, Melissa, what strategies do you use to communicate effectively with parents about their child's progress or concerns?
So
That's a
that's a
good
good
one.
one. So I know I love that. So in my role now, I don't do too much of that. I support my directors and their staff who communicate with the families every day. So thinking back to when I was a director, my communication was I would talk to them every morning at pickup, at drop off, throughout the day with emails, phone calls. We use a platform called Learning Genie now, which is great. Parents are able to sign in and out. We upload photos every day so that the parents can see what their children are doing in real
Oh,
time, which
that's
is
cool.
awesome because
That is
before it was
awesome.
it was really cool. Before we would just, send emails every now and then, or it would be in our monthly newsletter, but now they can see, oh, this is the activity that my child is doing, or oh, they're having snack right now. So they're able to kind of, stay more connected with their child throughout the day. On a
Nice.
more formal level, we do conferences with parents twice a year. So that's where we'll sit down with them and really kind of go over their development, their strengths, areas of improvement, and just have a conversation. Parent conferences were also one of my favorite events during the year because it was really quiet time to sit down with the parents and really just get to know them, get to know their family, get to know, what do you do for a living? And what do you guys like to do for fun as a family? So I really valued the parent conferences because I really just got to learn more about their parenting style and what kind of support they needed and what they wanted to see from us. It was also an opportunity for them to get to know myself and the staff. They could ask us questions. So parent conferences are a really important part of communication for us as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
I would think so, yeah, because you're getting to know the parent, and how
absolutely.
they sort of operate,
Mhm,
how things are at home, whatever they
yeah,
reveal.
Yeah.
And it could be very
And the
enlightening.
times
Some
have
parents
changed.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say it could be pretty enlightening sometimes, just the things that parents tell you. You're like, "Oh, okay, like, that makes sense why, your child is this
Yeah.
way." But
Yeah.
also, professional and neutral. But then sometimes with some parents, I had a closer relationship, so I could just be very blunt and honest with them. But for others, where if they said something to me that was kind of out there, I'd be like, "Okay, thank you for sharing."
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Thank you
the
for sharing.
the common tagline, "Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing,"
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
with your
You're like,
nice face on.
like, you would not believe what they just said.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It takes resilience, I would think, because
Really, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Just
the more
because you're
a
working
lot.
with different personalities.
exactly.
So,
I feel
Absolutely.
like
you never really know what's gonna be triggering to you, the person to
Mhm.
you. So it's important to be mindful of that too.
Right. And after doing
Because with kids,
conferences,
it's like no filter,
oh
you
yeah, they
know?
have
Yeah.
no filter, and after doing conferences for so long, like you kind of learn, uh, just kind of go with the flow. And sometimes it's not really, at this
Yes.
point, nothing surprises me. So the parents could literally say anything. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's definitely a great learning opportunity for you as well, going through doing these conferences. At first, I was just terrified having to do them. And now, oh, bring it on. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I have to say, Melissa is like a childcare gangster. She just
Really.
knows how to communicate with people, how to hold space, how to have boundaries. I mean, over time, obviously, you build up that kind of energy, but Melissa is like, she doesn't let anything get past her, and she will fight for you. I mean, she will fight.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things where you have to teeter between both balances, right? Of staff and parents and organization. But yeah,
absolutely.
I
You
think you do an
reminded me.
amazing job.
Thank you. You reminded me of just a funny story I wanted to share. So years
Yes.
ago, we had a family from Brazil, and yeah, their child was a biter, and we've never had a biter like this before. But he bit literally everyone and didn't speak English, cried all day long. He just, poor kid, just had
That
a
was
rough,
his communication.
rough go of it.
Hi, let me bite you.
Yeah, he went from child to child, just biting everyone and then biting teachers. And parents
No.
were decent, but, also it was just kind of difficult to communicate with them. The dad would bring this, like, stuffed carrot for him to bite. So, "Oh, here's his carrot. Just have him bite the carrot." So we would give him this carrot to bite, and it got to the point where one day he had bit about 20 children within 2 hours, and so my assistant director
Oh.
said, "Okay, I need to call his dad to pick up." So she calls the dad. I was upstairs in my
Oh.
office, and my office is above the classroom. So it was right before lunch, and I heard the children lining up for lunch. All of a sudden, I hear our gate open. I hear this dad come barreling into the yard, start screaming at my assistant director in front of all the children and teachers. I came down and I said, "Let's take this inside so that you're not having this conversation in front of anybody else." So he comes inside, starts screaming at me. "Well, why are you guys calling me? You should just let him, just put him in the classroom by himself." And I explained to him, we're licensed childcare. We can't leave children by themselves. He goes, "Oh, but just watch him from the window." That doesn't count. We still need to be in the classroom with him. And, "Oh, you guys can't handle it?" I said, "We can handle it, but it's gotten to the point where he's hurt the majority of the children and teachers, and he just needs to go home for the day." And I remember one of my staff had kind of walked in at that time. She was on her lunch break, and she's like listening to him yell at me, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh." And afterwards, she was like, "Melissa, I don't know how you just sat there and let him yell at you." And I said, in the moment, no matter what I said, he wasn't going to hear me. He was just hot and in, his feelings, and he just had to let it out. And I just had to give him the space to do that. But also had to kind of shut him down when he said that you guys aren't qualified to watch my children. I said, "No, we are qualified, but we also need to keep the other children safe. So that's why you need to take your child home today."
Yes,
So
please.
Exactly.
yeah, like Natalie said, I've learned from some negative experiences just how to, yeah, hold space for the families when it's appropriate.
My goodness. And just for the viewers' context, biting is something that is very, very common for children, younger ages. And in my personal professional opinion, one, one or two is a lot. Anything more is really excessive. But the point of that is that we also have to understand the behavior. We as a staff and a team have to understand, well, what is the context behind this environment and how can we shift it to support this child who has the need to chomp? So there are different ways that you can go about doing that. Melissa, I don't know if you want to suggest some things that maybe your organization does to help with biting in general,
Mhm.
but it is something that's very common. It does happen a lot.
Yeah.
And we still have to hold space for these kids. We still
Mhm.
have to hold space for children who have that need.
Yeah.
This little boy sounds like a little T-Rex. But,
Right.
and even then we would be comical about it too. Like we'd probably give him a little nickname and be like, "All
Yeah.
right, we're just gonna serve T-Rex today.
Yeah.
What are we gonna feed him? What are we gonna give him to bite?"
Yeah, you have to approach
Um,
some of these situations with humor. And yeah, like you said, just trying to understand the root of it. Looking back now, I feel like this
yeah.
child bit so much because he was just frustrated that he didn't know the language. And I don't think we quite understood that at the time. I would say, I was definitely newer to being a director then, so still learning. Looking back, I'm like, oh, I think he was just very frustrated that he couldn't communicate with us and he just wanted to play and interact. And for him, it was just, let me just bite you. When that family left, the dad forgot his carrot and so we just kinda left it in the classroom as a joke, like, "Oh, look, there's the carrot."
Thank you.
Um,
Let's all
yeah,
bite it. See,
Oh
to
my gosh.
I could not like okay. Like I have to hold space for
Reset.
myself right now because no, that's not
yeah,
see, that's just me. But Natalie knows that, I mean, I did things wrong, right? It was if you had told me that my kid was biting, oh hell no. Like,
again,
okay, this will not happen again. But I get
yeah,
it. It's psychologically, you really have to figure out what's going on. And
yeah,
that
and
is
it's hard,
exactly
not
why I'm not in
yeah, and
childcare.
not all parents understand. We did have a case
Exactly.
at the infant center that I oversaw once, where the child was a biter, and he was maybe 9 months old, so very young, not quite
Yeah.
1. But he was a biter, and so, again, very common for that age, but the mom was also just a very young mother, and they were
Yeah.
on, financial aid.
Yeah.
Not that that really matters, but it does provide a little bit of context to, just her background. But she was just very frustrated with her child biting. And so one day he got dropped off and we saw, a bite mark on him. And we said, "Oh, what happened?" And the mother said, "Oh, well, I bit him." She said, "He bit me and I just bit him back to teach him not to do that." Um, and so, "Oh, you can't do that. Your child
Right.
is,
In my brain, I'm
well,
like,
Yeah.
CPS.
yes. Yeah, so,
Yes.
there's cases like that where the parents just are not educated, and that's where
Yeah.
it's our job to come in and really just help them learn and give them some
Yeah.
strategies. So, kind of going back to your question, Natalie, about what we do to support biters is, it's a pretty simple strategy is, if they bite a couple of times, okay, we keep an eye on it. If it becomes an ongoing issue and they're biting every day constantly, okay, we start to shadow them. If it
Right.
gets more and they're targeting one child in particular, okay, then this teacher, you're assigned to that child,
Right.
and you're just going to be with them. If it gets to the point where that teacher gets burnt out, then we kind of have it on rotation where, okay, it's going to
Mhm.
be teacher A from 9 to 10, then teacher B from 10 to 11, just to give the teachers a break. If I was a director, usually I would be the one to take it on because those kids don't bother me. All right, this is my job. I'm the leader of this program. Let that child be with me and I will support them. So that's typically our strategy. If it gets to the point where us shadowing that child for a few weeks really doesn't help, that's when we'll reach out to a parent's place and see if, okay, maybe you need to come out and do an observation and see if there's something that we're missing.
Mhm. That's smart. And I just have to say that as staff, you get bit too. And I
Oh,
have been
yeah.
bitten before too. So,
Mhm.
we
Me
hold
too.
space for all of it. And that's why we
Mhm.
have teachers in rotation.
Yes.
And, just also for parents out there who are concerned, sometimes childcare is not the best place. They need time. So,
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is that, Melissa, your organization really does like try to get into like the nitty gritty and the roots
Yeah.
of what is going on before. Like it's a slow, gradual escalation to figure out whether this is the best place for your child, which is amazing because every childcare is different. And
Mhm.
so I really appreciate that your organization does that.
Me too. That's something that I appreciate a lot as well. I've learned over the years that a lot of childcare agencies will terminate, you get 2 chances and you're out.
Mhm.
And to me, I'm like, that's so harsh. That's not enough time to really learn the root cause and work with the child and the family. Like, and what message is that sending the child? So that just breaks my heart. So yes, termination is the last thing that we ever want to do. I've fortunately have never had to terminate. It has gotten to the point where we're having that conversation, but the family always ends up making that decision first. And, it's a hard discussion with them. I'll let them know, we're really going to work with you, but this program, it just might not be the best fit for your child. And once we start having that conversation, then the parents kind of get it in their mind. okay, we might need to look for something else. And almost every single time when they've pulled their child, placed them somewhere else, I still like to keep in touch and check in on how that child is doing. Almost all the time, they're doing so much better in the other program. Maybe our environment wasn't good. Maybe it was too big. They needed something smaller with a smaller ratio or, just a nanny or an au pair. And whatever the case may be, termination for us is the last resort unless it gets to the
Yeah.
point where we just cannot support your child anymore. And if it gets to that point, it's always a very sad moment for us because to me, it just breaks my heart. I feel like I failed. But at the same time, I know that it's not really a failure. I've done everything I can. I want to see your child succeed. So even if that's not with us and it's somewhere else, then that will make me feel.
Hmm.
So then, initially, when a family would come to you or the agency, um, do you do a background, sort of like what is there dislikes of the child? Tell me more about your child. Are there any? Is there anything we need to look for, or that we need to something like that?
Yeah, it's a little bit more
Yeah.
general. I would say that we kind of gauge a lot during that initial tour with the family. I learned a lot about families during tours.
Yes.
Yes. And then
That's true.
over the years, you kind of learn like what the red flags are. If parents are like, I want something academic and super
Mm.
structured, you're like, okay, this is not going to be the right fit for you because we're play based and open ended. Um, if they say something about, discipline and, it doesn't align with, their own discipline, I'm very honest with them. Like, that's not our approach. So just something for you to keep in mind that you might end up not being so happy here. In the beginning, it was very hard to say that to families, but then I would enroll anyone, and then it would turn out to be a disaster. And I learned,
Yeah.
man, I really should have said something during that tour.
Mhm.
And so over the
Yeah.
years, you definitely pick up on red flags from parents if they're like, oh, the kids sit down and they do, like, if they have like this sour look on their face and they're kind of nitpicky about things, nope, you're not the right fit for our program. And,
Okay.
move on. And then once we actually do formally enroll a family, there's a lot of paperwork that comes with that. One of the forms is an introduction. It's fairly general, but it says, your child's likes, dislikes, struggles, and things like that. Anything for us to be aware of. Parents also just share a lot of that information on the tour, and we'll ask them, tell us about your child and what do they like to do, just so that we can kind of gauge if their child does have any special needs or difficulties. Most parents do tell us. Every now and then, parents try to be sneaky and say, "Oh, they're fine," and then after they enroll, we're like,
Yeah.
"You are just kind of withholding information from us."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to go back to the biting for just a second.
Mhm.
Um, what have you had parents that have come to you saying, what's going on? Like, my kid is getting bitten by this other kid. What are you all
Yeah,
doing? I mean,
absolutely.
yeah,
And that's a really hard one. Once it gets to the point where other parents are coming to us about a specific child, that's where the teachers can get a little bit more stressed out, and that's when we really need to step up our game plan. So at the infant center, again, we see bite a lot more in the infant programs. It's just, again, developmentally common and normal. Parents don't understand that. They just see my child's coming home with a bite mark. What's going
yeah,
on? What are you guys doing? And they come in. Infant parents are very protective and defensive. And so they come
Yes.
in, yes, they come in demanding answers. And what
yeah,
is your plan? This is my baby. Why do they have this bite mark? We had one infant who was getting bit every single day. And even though there was a teacher with her
Mhm.
constantly, the other girl, she was just quick. You would turn your head for 1 second, and just in that 1 second, she would get bit on the back, on the arm, and it left really bad bruises. And so it really got to the point where we had to have a conference with that family and really tell them, okay, our plan is we're just going to keep these children separated. It is slightly impactful on the program when you really have to do something like that. And to
yeah,
me, I don't always like to separate the children. I still want them to have the opportunity to play with all children, but we also have to keep the other child safe. So it might be a little bit of, switching things up in the schedule to keep two children in completely separate groups all day. But if that's what we need to do to keep one child safe and keep this family happy, then we'll do that. While also trying to figure out why is this child just targeting this other child
yeah.
24/7. But then they typically grow out of it. And I don't, sometimes the biting does last for several months, but then they move on. once they start to
Yeah.
develop language and can start expressing themselves and saying what they need and want, that really you see a reduction in the amount of biting that they do.
Wow. Hats off. Shout out to that.
And that's just
Shout
one
out.
behavior we're talking about.
Yeah,
Just
All of you.
one among many.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's hard.
gosh. Yeah.
And yeah, especially the infant centers, I give infant teachers so much respect because working with babies who are crying all day and they need constant
Yes.
one-on-one attention from you, but then you're also trying to support this child who's biting 24/7 and
Yeah.
it's a lot. So for the infant teachers who are working all day, oh my gosh. I mean, I love babies and I love going to the infant centers, but and I've had my own children, but working all day with infants,
Yeah.
it's a tough job. So you have to
Yeah.
really like that age.
Okay. Moving on. But shout out to all of you who have done
Yes.
this. Goodness. So, Melissa, tell me about a time you adapted an activity to meet the development needs of a child. Let me make sure I got that out correctly.
Yeah, so that was one of my favorite things doing when I was a preschool teacher. The children in our program were 2 to 5 years old, so it was a mixed age group, which I loved. I had been in programs where it was separated by ages, so you had the twos, threes, fours, and fives. So working in a mixed age program was a great challenge for me because you had to create activities that were age appropriate for a 2-year-old and also a 5-year-old. And how do you do that? Because if you really look at it, 2 and 5, like that's actually a pretty big age difference in terms of what can, engage them and captivate them. So that was something that I got really good at. Back in the day, I just had books of curriculum and different activities that I would use. This was before Pinterest and, using the internet so much. I had to go to the library and get books. And I had I think it was called the Preschool Curriculum Bible, I think is what it was called. And it was this huge, like 600-page book. And I would just go through that and kind of adapt the activities. So if there was a really cool science activity, with making colors, I'm like, okay, so what could I do with this? I could still do shaving cream and colors for the 2-year-old, but then maybe I can bring in some more advanced tools for the 4 and 5-year-olds to kind of incorporate into this activity. But sometimes you would see, oh, the twos are kind of watching the older kids, and they're wanting to do that. And then slowly you would see the 5-year-olds would go to the 2-year-olds and kind of start to teach them. And so it was actually just a
Mhm.
beautiful experience for the children because the older children were learning how to kind of be a teacher and a model for their younger friends. And the younger friends were really learning from the older friends.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that was something that we did every day, which I absolutely loved. And sometimes my activities were a complete failure and none of them were into it. I'm like, okay, that did not work today. What can I try differently next time?
Mhm.
No, I'm just taking notes and observing the children and seeing how they were. And also just being mindful of where they were developmentally. So knowing that a 2-year-old isn't necessarily going to be able to, open and close a clothespin because they just don't have that fine motor skill. What can I do instead? Oh, maybe like rubber bands and just kind of teaching them how to open and close it like that. Uh, and you really just learn how to experiment and become a scientist when you're a preschool teacher because you're working with children of all developmental abilities.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, more to it than I thought.
Yes, preschool teachers do a
Or we
lot.
could just take them outside in the backyard and they can just
Yeah.
play with leaves and
Run
sticks.
around.
Or, they can be creative, very creative with
Oh,
very
sure.
limited things,
Yes.
dirt,
Absolutely.
for example, I
Mhm.
mean, just things they can do with what they're get, what they have.
Yeah. Get a
So,
shovel and put them outside in the sandbox or in the dirt and
Mhm.
just, what can you do with
Yep.
this? Oh, we can dig and we can make a hole and oh, they get creative. Oh, let me bring some sticks and leaves and rocks over here and this is my potion. You know, we're very
yeah,
into, loose materials and, open-ended activities. So bringing in just a bunch of random things, it might look random, but to a child, oh my gosh, like I can create, a whole structure or a house or a whole other universe with
yeah,
just these two things.
yeah,
Yes. And I do want to say that Melissa's organization really has a nice balance of natural materials and also materials that you might find at the store or larger businesses that sell
Mhm.
these products that might be made out of plastic.
Yeah.
I think in the childcare realm, we have gotten better about outsourcing and creating materials for kids that are safe to be put in the mouth, safe to be banged on and just used. I personally, in my childcare experience, love natural materials, but I love that your organization does both. And I think that's needed because it's real, right? It's
Yeah.
realistic
Right.
based on the environment that we're in, right? We're not completely in the forest,
Mhm.
right? Where we would just be around animals, sticks, trees, and just the environment.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I like what you said about bringing in different gradients, different materials, different sensory experiences. That is the beauty of how we learn from infancy all the way to adulthood. It's using all of our faculties.
Yeah.
And I think that how you spend time with the kids and how you've learned how to bring in your full environment, it takes time. It doesn't come right away. So, I love that over time as, childcare workers, that's how we learn through experience and playing as well with the kids in the space with the activity, which, I know we've had some fun times together in childcare. So,
Yes.
I can definitely speak to that. It's fun, and
Yeah.
you're so good at it. So,
I've learned, again, I like to think back since, now I'm in a position where I'm able to bring in a lot of new staff and I'm hiring these staff who are the ages of my oldest son. I'm like, oh my gosh, she could be my
right.
child. But just so green
Yeah.
and fresh. And I see myself in them, and just how far I've come in terms of my own learning, and just what I've learned by playing with the children. And I've gotten to a point where I'm kind of like you, Natalie, where I really just gravitate towards the natural materials. If I walk into a classroom and I see it's the plastic bright color, I'm like, "Ooh, my heart," I'm like, "I don't wanna see
Yeah.
that," but I also have to take a step back, and like you said, it's not realistic for parents at home to have, "Oh, it's all woodsy, natural, neutral."
Yeah.
No, they're gonna have, play school toys or whatever, and that's okay. The children need a little bit of both in their environments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's okay if they get dirty.
Yeah,
It's okay.
Yeah.
let
It
them
is
get
We
messy.
okay.
love that.
Yeah.
No. And I wasn't that parent, and I really wish I was now because I learned later from my girlfriend raising her children, like, long nails and dirt under them. I mean, things that I would cringe at, dirty clothing, literally in puddles of mud. And she thought that was so cool because it's creativity. Like, and I was thinking, okay, but I'm so sorry. I mean, that I was so jaded about how my kids look, right? And I mean, they inspired me to climb trees with them. And I'm a 63-year-old woman, but I was doing it. And I didn't do that then, with my kids. So, wow, this is just really cool. Taya's kids, Natalie,
Yes.
just things I never did when my kids were, I'm doing now, Lisa, like for real. And,
Yeah.
and, I, and it's fun. It's fun. It's like, Marvin, get dirty. It's okay.
Better late
Yeah, it
than
is,
never.
Right?
right?
It's
Yeah.
liberating.
Yeah.
It is liberating, but I'm so sorry too that I wasn't that parent, you know, I wasn't that parent, but
Well, I know how to clean and keep things really clean, so
do you know how to
that's a
clean, Natalie?
plus. Well, I'm still learning, but I like to think so.
Yeah. Okay. We're moving on. So what are you most proud of within your profession?
I think it's what we do for the community. That's always been very important to me, and I love the fact that our agency serves so many financial aid students. We give out so many scholarships every year to families that just can't afford it. And just
Yeah.
being able to provide quality care for all children, regardless of their backgrounds. So for me, I think that's one thing that means the most to me is when I walk into, just the preschool, for example, and I see just the beautiful diversity in terms of the children and their backgrounds and their families, and everybody's welcome here. You can't afford it, then let's see what we can do to support you. Because yeah, childcare is very expensive in this area.
Yeah.
It's almost a rent payment or a mortgage payment, which is insane. but that also goes to staff salaries and rent and materials and just everything that it entails to run a childcare program. So I understand the financial reason that, our tuition is what it is, but it also breaks my heart that there's families out there who just cannot afford it. And to me, that's not fair.
Yeah.
There needs to be quality childcare available for all children. And the fact that we serve over 900 families, and I can't remember the number of financial aid families, it's probably close to almost 300 to 300, I think. It's a good amount. That's what I'm very proud of is that we are just a pillar in the community now, and families and people are just starting to recognize us. We're out there in the community and they see our shirts because we have staff shirts that we wear. Like, oh,
Oh,
I know that
cool.
program. Before, nobody knew us. Nobody knew us. We've been around for 50 years. Nobody knew us until the last 4-ish years. And they're like, oh, that's been you guys this whole time? Yep, just we're here.
In the
We're out
background,
here
yeah.
now. So, Melissa, real quick, could you just touch on the difference between the play-based and the Montessori? And I think you mentioned another one so that our viewers understand what the differences are in the
Yeah.
curriculum.
I feel like Natalie might be more qualified than me to kind of go into that.
Mm,
I know more
you
about
got this.
play-based than, Reggio and Montessori. I want to say Reggio is Italian, right, Natalie?
It is, yeah. It's
Yeah,
Italian
so I
based.
do
It's
remember learning
originated
about
from there.
Reggio in college, and I just remember watching a video of the children in Italy going to a museum, looking at sculptures, and then the teachers bringing them outside and then just giving the children some clay and some paper and then letting them kind of create their own sculptures. So I feel like it's very open-ended. And then play-based kind of touches on that, where you'll provide the children with materials in their environment and, there's no expectation like you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's really up to you to decide how to play in this environment. So, I don't know, Natalie, if you want to touch more on like Reggio or
Yeah,
Montessori.
Reggio Emilia. Yeah, Reggio Emilia Montessori, I think, bleed into each other because
Mhm.
it's a very artistic
Yeah.
philosophy. And so for the staff and teachers preparing the space and the curriculum for the children is really thinking about all of the things that they would need to create, to be innovative, to be learners themselves, to figure things out without us having to step in. So we now become the facilitators. So, yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that's what, your organization does already. I mean, you really do have conversations around what materials are safe, but, thinking about how they sound and how they feel and what they do when you know, put them in a science-based environment where you're thinking about, all right, cause and effect, right? The only other philosophy that I know that I worked with was Waldorf education. And that,
Oh,
again,
yeah.
that's more, I would say, I'm going to call it free range for lack of a better word. There are some
Yeah.
spiritual components to it, but what I loved about it is that it taught you how to be a human, how to tend, how to care for your environment, for people, for animals, and learn about food. We would make almost everything that we ate and we would grow it. So it's a very beautiful philosophy, and it's not traditional in the sense that you would go to our what we would call our grade school system. It's a different type of system. So, their expectations for their child is that the child will lead the education. So not the parent. It's the child letting you know, I either love to paint or I love to sing or I love to draw or I love to cook. And so all of these things are within the educational space for that child to be able to just run the gamut with, whatever this person is meant to do, they're going to figure it out at a young age, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, but I love the organization that we worked for, Melissa, because I think that it was really awesome to also outsource in the community, right? Can you name some places where you can go and get materials? Like if you don't have your child in childcare, there are some places that you can go to get these materials and set it up at home. So could you mention some places for parents?
So for parent, let's see. I mean, a lot of parents actually go to just like Target and Amazon. I mean, you can find really great things there. A lot of our programs actually have found some wonderful things on Amazon. If you type in,
Yeah.
Montessori inspired toys or Reggio inspired toys, you'll see a whole list of things. And I purchased a lot of materials for my programs there. In terms of actual other stores, there's Lakeshore Learning. I don't know if they're still
Yeah.
open. And then there's Wrapped, but that is for teachers only. So I think you need to show proof that you are a teacher to go to that store and buy materials.
And you mentioned Pinterest too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
Oh,
DIY
yeah.
this. You could go to the thrift store,
Oh, your Goodwill.
disinfect and clean and then repurpose. I love repurposing. So that's another thing. And then I would go before, I would get to class, I would go and walk around the neighborhood and just pick natural materials that I knew would be safe and clean and
Mhm.
add it to the environment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's so many ways that you can do this.
Yeah. And then just like the little, local toy stores. There's not too many now. A lot of them have been shut down or closed for
That's
whatever
true.
reason, which is
Yeah.
so sad. There was a great one downtown that we used to go to all the time with the children and buy, teachers would buy materials there. So there could be some like local toy stores that parents go to as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. We are nearing the end. We are nearing the end. Okay. What initiative or programs do you believe are essential for providing effective mental health support for both children and staff in a childcare setting?
It's a really good question. That's definitely something that in the last couple of years we've really started to explore. So that's still relatively new for us. One of my colleagues has taken on kind of the mental health aspect for our agency. So she would be the one who could really speak more to that. I know that she's brought in narrative therapy into the programs. And so last year she had an expert in the field come and lead trainings every month or so, every 2 months with our staff, just to kind of teach them what is narrative therapy? How do you incorporate that into the classroom with the children? And it's kind of a role play. So that was something that she did last year. And in this next year, we're doing something called the teaching pyramid, which really encompasses just all areas of mental health. So that's still a pretty new one for us. And we're still doing our own research to see what can we do to support, this growing need in the mental health area.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I think we need to do it more, to be honest. Within the childcare realm, we need to understand how mental health plays a big part in you as a person, you as a staff member, and then also as a leader, right? Because burnout is real. And if we are not teaching our staff how to take care of themselves outside of the classroom, then our expectations are lower, right? So I I was actually there working at the organization when this mental health pilot was put
Right.
on, and I think it was great because it had someone come in who was an expert to talk about what are our feelings
Mhm.
about childcare, about working with kids, about working with other people and struggles. Like, what is that? And then we could have deeper conversations around, okay, how are we serving these kids?
Mhm.
Are we serving them, right? Are we really challenging ourselves to make this environment the best and supportive that it can be? Right. And then understanding what are the emotional layers? Why is this behavior happening? Like we talked with someone about these things. The scenario and role plays were great because you have to decompress what is happening, right, Melissa? Like the real talk is having real talk. What is the tea? What is going on here? And why is it that I'm affected by this child or this parent or this thing that happened? So, that all bleeds into mental health,
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing that this organization is doing that. And I hope that it encourages other programs to do the same. I know it was one particular clinician that was working with you. I don't know if that's been built upon
Mhm.
since I left the organization, but yeah, it's a great service for sure.
Yeah, well, I feel like, this is going to be a work in progress for us over the next several years as we just continue to build upon what we know and what we need to bring in to really just support the staff working with the children
Yeah.
and the children as well.
Yeah. Well,
There's
we
so
are
many
nearing the end.
components.
Yes, definitely. We are nearing the end. So, Melissa, I want to give you the floor for a minute to take your childcare hat off and tell us maybe some fun facts about you that you do in your personal time away from childcare. If you have any PSAs that you want to throw out there, and also if you would like viewers to follow up with you, where can we find you? So maybe just share some of that before we close out the show.
Sure. So let's see. In my spare time, I just like to spend time with my family, go for walks. I love walking and just being outside in nature. My son and I have been walking on a trail by our house, and now that it's getting, closer to winter and a little bit rainy, it's green and beautiful, and that just brings me so much peace just being outside and connecting with nature. Natalie knows I love to do yoga. I feel like I'm getting
Oh,
better,
yes.
getting back to my yoga practice. And yeah, really just being aware of just my mental and physical health. I feel like it's really important to just exercise and take care of myself. So yeah,
Yeah.
you'll often see me walking or even just singing in the car. I feel like that's a good mental health break for me.
I was going to
Yes.
say, she's a
Concert, but
singer.
good. I like to sing. So that's
That's
so much
so
fun for
cool.
me. Yeah. And then, yeah, if people would like to follow up with me, I guess maybe like my Instagram, or if you wanted to,
Okay,
yeah,
we'll put it below
Yes.
in the show
yeah,
notes. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
we will. And congratulations. Melissa just got married. So congratulations. Yay. Her name
Oh,
change is there on the
Melissa.
screen.
Thank you so much.
So
Congratulations.
You.
yeah, how is
It's
that? Does it feel weird?
wonderful. I know. I'm like, ooh, I'm a
Good.
wife.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah,
though.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
My husband is great and his kids are wonderful and my kids are adjusted and we're just one big happy blended family.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
When it blends and it jives, that
Right?
is really a
Because
blessing.
it could go either way. But
Yes. Yes, it
Yeah.
can.
yeah.
Very cool. I'm so glad you shared with us today. So glad I got to meet
Yeah.
you.
Me too. Thank you both so much. This was wonderful.
Absolutely. And I look forward to meeting you when I go back out there to
I
visit
Mhm.
can't
Allie.
wait. That
So,
will be so fun.
yeah, yeah. So thank you again, Melissa.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was amazing. It was a great show, and there's so many things that we could actually talk about within childcare. So we just barely, chipped away at a humongous iceberg. But I think that it would be great to have you back on to go into another layer of childcare. I'm sure parents have other questions about the materials and just the do's and
Yeah.
don'ts, and what do you look for when you're shopping for a childcare, right? With time wise, there's just no way to cover all of it. So, but yeah, we'll definitely have you back on to share with us the other part
Yes,
two
please. Yeah.
of
Okay.
childcare.
Happy to do
And
it.
yeah. And mom, do you
That
want to
would
say
be really nice.
any last words to our viewers, our awesome viewers?
Well, I'm just glad that people are watching and they're following our content. And if you like, smash that like
Smash
button,
the like.
smash the like button, and like and subscribe, right?
Yes,
Subscribe if you like this content, and smash that like button.
exactly. We need to have
Smash.
a little hammer emoji.
Or a gavel. Yeah.
And
Oh,
right. Anyway,
so
yes, absolutely. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us for this conversation. And if you have any comments, anything that you want to share, questions that you have, we will also put our email at the bottom so you can send those along.
yes.
So thank you, everyone, and enjoy.
And Melissa, we will talk again.
Thank
We will talk.
you.